Hi, I'm Dawn and this is where Shabby meets Bling. This is the Last Thing Thrifted, Fall, Halloween, and Winter and Christmas decor. I would like to thank my co-hosts, Jody from Jody at Southern Seasons, Annie from Crafting with Indiana Jones, Monica of Up All Night DIY, and Zaina from OK at Home DIY. You're going to find the links to this amazing playlist and their channels in my description box below. Last Thing Thrifted, and these literally are some of the last things I've thrifted. I picked up these pumpkins, these little planters at Goodwill. This one was $3.99, and these two little weird dolls were $1 each. And I didn't get these at Goodwill. I got them on my favorite resale shop, $1. So someone was trying to sell this guy for 10, and this one didn't have another price, but evidently no one wanted to buy these poor little guys, so they ended up resale, and I grabbed them for $1 each. I also came across in another container at my favorite resale shop. I bought the container and there was stuff inside, just a mishmash of stuff, and these little pumpkins were in the bottom. And I pointed out that they were in there. They didn't care. I got the whole little bucket of junk for 25 cents. So my project today is going to be a representation of these very old rustic vintage ornaments. These Halloween ornaments are about 5 inches tall, but I want one to sit on a tabletop. So I'm going to try to recreate the look of these beautiful vintage ornaments. First thing I have to do is address this little weird doll with this little ball cap and whatnot. So I take off his wig and his hat, which was pretty darn easy, and you can see there's kind of a residue left from the glue from that little wig. And now Blue likes it. Blue thinks the wig's fun to play with. But now I need to get all the rest of the junk off of this little dude. And once I get him totally cleaned up, then I can address what we're gonna do to him next. So here's our little weird shaped doll, and you can see its inseam is a little bit high, a little too high. So I am gonna fill in that gap. I am going to use some paper towels and some Aleene's tacky glue to create kind of a more normal shaped living creature type body. Oh, this thing is going to be kind of a pumpkin cherub Halloween character. Okay, I don't even know which way to say it. You saw the vintage ornaments. That's what this is gonna be. It's going to be just a cherub, kind of pumpkin cherub. Let's call it a pumpkin cherub. So I am filling in all of the weird spaces that need to be filled in to make it shaped a little better. And then we're going to tackle some of the weirdness around the arms and around where the legs are attached. Before I get too carried away, I need to get my base situated. I need to know where his little cherub feet are going to be, and I need to drill a couple holes into the pumpkin, and I need to drill a couple of holes into the bottom of his feet because it needs to be secured on here at some point in time. But before I can continue with getting the rest of his body prepped, I need to get these holes drilled so I can stand it on here whenever I want to kind of see how this whole thing is playing out. At this point, I am also giving his head, his hands, his little feet and legs a coat of orange paint. I'm just giving it a nice quick coat. It doesn't matter how neat and tidy you are. You just don't want to leave streaks. And I'm covering the entire head, the feet, and the hands with this orange. It is an acrylic paint, by the way. You can see already how more proportionate his little body looks, but now we're going to give him a little more dimension. I am using part of a styrofoam ball to give him a little belly, because little cherubs usually have little bellies, and he did not have one. So I am just kind of squashing this down, and I'm gonna hot glue it right to him. Now, his belly was not the only part of his little persona. that was lacking. So once I get this on here real well, I'm gonna flip him over, and I'm gonna take a teeny itty bitty little styrofoam ball, and I'm gonna cut little tuchus cheeks. So he's gonna get a little more filled out on his backside as well. I'm doing the same with his little cheeks, and it looks a little weird right now, but keep in mind what those vintage ornaments look like. They were not proportioned to a human person at all. Now to disguise the areas that are the joints of the porcelain and the fabric, because I don't want those lumps, those little bumpies to show. So I'm using more of my paper towel and some Mod Podge to disguise all this and build it up so it looks like a one long normal leg. Normal leg. So it looks, I don't know, like there's no Frankenstein-y kind of thing happening here. Someone sewed on a foot. And I am going to use this whole procedure all over his body to disguise my styrofoam. And if you notice, I have torn my paper towels so that it's not a line that you're seeing when this goes on. And I'm gonna wrap this little guy kind of like a mummy. Once I get him totally wrapped, I am going to give the entire thing a coat of chalk paint. And this is plaster, doesn't matter. You're never gonna see this. This is just kind of sealing in my paper towel and my Mod Podge. If you notice, I even put a little circles of paper towels on his little cheeks. So everything at this point is just getting coated with this chalk paint to seal it in. Once this little guy is totally coated with the chalk paint, I'm gonna set it aside and let it dry. But once it's dry, we're going to fill all of the little dents and the creases with some filler. I'm just using a lightweight spackling to fill in all the little gaps. That way his body will have a smoother texture when I'm done. It will also resemble paper mache. It also looks like he's wearing a cast, like he had some horrible accident. I'm even filling in the little cracks around the styrofoam balls on his cheeks, on his face, so that way that whole area will be nice and smooth as well. Once my spackling is dry, I sand and sand and sand and sand. I am using a very fine sandpaper here. I think it's a 320, I think. But very, very fine, because I don't want to create large gouges in the spackling. I want it to be super smooth. As I sand, I will uncover that orange paint, and that way I know to stop sanding. It's kind of like a red light, but in this case it's an orange light. It's like, slow down, stop sanding, because you're getting close to the doll itself. After I finish sanding, I dust off all of the little powder, that residue that's left, and I'm giving the entire thing a coat of pumpkin orange chalk paint. And this is a Waverly, and I'm going to coat the entire thing, and that way any imperfections will stand out, and the chalk paints are very, very sandable. So it's a good prep coat, so to speak. So the entire thing is getting hit with this orange pumpkin chalk paint. As I said, the orange reveals the flaws, so I went back with my spackling one more time and hit anything that did not look proper to me. Now I'm going to create some wings for our little cherub. I am laying the little doll down, and I am just drawing out what I think his little wings should look like, the shape and size and so on. And then I fold the paper over and I'm cutting out the paper wing. Then I will take this paper wing and kind of see what the size looks like with my doll. And if his little cherub wings need to be a little bit bigger, I'll make them a little bit bigger. It's all trial and error, and at this point it's just paper, no harm, no foul. So I get the exact shape I want, I cut it out again, and then I transfer that image onto some cardboard, which will become the actual wings. And I cut out 2 of these shapes of cardboard, and I am going to glue them together so they're nice and thick and not so darn flimsy. I take both of them and I will use 3-in-1 glue, and then I will use my little brayer, my roller, to bond them together so they're nice and flat and no bumps, no lumps, and it's ready to be painted. I get to paint these little wings. Everybody loves a hippo gray paint, the color hippo gray. Well, this is elephant gray. Since I don't have access to the infamous hippo, I'm going for the elephant, and I'm coating both sides 2 times over with this beautiful elephant gray paint, chalk paint, Waverly. Now that my paint is dry, I am using Mod Podge, very, very thick coated Mod Podge, and some silver glitter. It is glitter time. This thing is going to be like a big old glitter bomb. There's going to be so much glitter in this project. I will be sweeping it up all the way through New Year's. Apologies to all my friends that do not like glitter, and hooray to all my friends that do love glitter. I am piling it on thick, and I will hit both sides, and then we will move back to our little cherub. One final sanding, and then we paint for real. I am using a color called Canyon Sunset. It is gorgeous, and it is a multi-surface satin paint by Folk Art. And now the entire body gets coated with this gorgeous, vibrant orange color. That orange is dry, and now it's time for some facial features. So just a little reminder of what our little vintage guys look like, and that is what I am aiming for. You can see that I even, when I was adding the spackling, I added a little bit of a brow, so that protruded, because this was a very smooth little doll when I began, and now it has all kinds of dimension to it. And you can see by looking at the vintage ones how abstract their faces are. They're not human, they're not pumpkin, they're a little bit of something of a mix. And so I am trying to achieve a look similar. I don't want them to be matchy identical. I just want the features on my little cherub to be able to coordinate with my ornaments. I am using a plaid apple barrel matte black for my black part of the features, and a plaster chalk paint Waverly white for his teeth and the whites of his eyes. Now more glitter. I told you. I am using a little bit of glitter to outline what would be if you were wearing a onesie, that little flap in the back, and I will mold it so it's not so thick at a later date before it dries fully, but I want it to firm up a little bit because I'm not using Mod Podge, I'm using a glitter glue. And then on his front, I will be adding a little bit of glitter in the crease at the top of his legs. Now it's time to paint our pumpkin. Yes, it gets painted too, even though it's pretty the color it is. I am painting it a Waverly chalk paint, and this is a sky pink. It will get 2 coats in total. Last time I used a pumpkin exactly like this was in this project. I'll leave the link in the description box so you can check that out. I need to support my cherub in some fashion, and I'm going to be using this heavy gauge wire to do so. I first need to make sure it fits through the hole I drilled earlier, and then it needs to be straight. So when I put my little cherub on here, this doesn't go right through the sides of his legs. I cut 2 equal pieces, and then I will run them through the bottom of my pumpkin, right through those holes. And then I will take the wire and twist it so that it cannot come back out through the pumpkin. Once I get both my wires twisted at the bottom, I will pull them all the way back through, and then I will add hot glue so they do not move, and then fill the cavity with scrappy foam. More glitter, you say? But of course, I could not find, and there is a huge selection at Hobby Lobby, and I could not find that pink cloud color in a glitter form, so I am comboing these 3 different glitters to make my own. And it's quite amazing. If you mix the right shades, you will come up with almost any color you want. And these 3 colors together make a beautiful glitter equivalent to pink cloud. And make sure when you're mixing glitters to get a special color, you mix enough, because it's almost impossible to duplicate a color unless you're measuring your glitter. And who measures glitter, please? No one. And of course, this glitter is going to get used on that pumpkin we just painted. See how close the color is. Isn't it remarkable? So beautiful. Pretty, pretty. Our vintage ornaments had those black crepe paper ruffled collars. So my larger version needs to have that collar as well. And I'm just using some crepe paper, 2 pieces cut to the same length. And I'm going to glue them together, not in the middle, offset a little bit, so that one side is, from where it's glued, it's going to be a little bit bigger than the other side. So I cut my 2 lengths, and then I use 3-in-1 glue to glue my pieces together. And this is way too much. I know this is way too much, but I'm going to be using it for some other things as well. Once glued, I sew my pieces together along the glued seam on the smaller side. So that way one side truly will be bigger than the other. I made a similar yet multicolored collar for Binx, and I'll leave the link for that video in my description box so you can check out little Binx. I am using my pinking shears to give a little bit of a detailed edge on both sides of my crepe paper. Then all I have to do is pull the thread to make it ruffle, and then I can glue it around the cherub's neck. I am keeping the little part that was cut off from the pinking shears because I will be using that little paper detail around his wrists and some around his ankles. I drew out a little star because I will be using these for my accent pieces, and I traced it onto cardboard. I drew out 2 different sizes, and I'm going to be painting them fresh foliage. This is a folk art matte paint. Then I will coat my stars with Mod Podge and a beautiful glitter from the glitter guy called In a Pickle. So pretty. Then I took those initial pumpkins, those little jack-o'-lanterns, and I filled in their little faces. And then I'm going to sand them and I'm going to paint them. This little guy on the right is going to become a scepter for my little cherub. I will add a little wood dowel and a little wood ball and glue it to the bottom of that tiny little jack-o'-lantern. And I'm going to paint his face to match my big cherub. I needed one last element, and that is some vintage postcards. I found them online, but I formatted them on Canva to make them really tiny and really cute. So I cut them out, and I'm going to add some glitter, and these are going to go onto my beautiful pumpkin at the bottom of my cherub. He might even be holding a few, delivering a few. We shall see. We shall see. So the only thing left to do is recreate the hat. It is made up of text and seems to be in a story form, so I decided to do the same. I wrote the beginning of a little story, and I will have that in the description box if you'd care to read it. Then I formed a hat out of it. Now it's time for me to assemble all of my little components, and then I'll let you take a look. So what began as a pumpkin planter and a weird little porcelain doll that was very disproportionate became a Halloween treasure. Let's start with that hat and the little story it tells. And I've added a lot of my characters into this story, so it was kind of fun for me to make. You can see the stars and the trim that I added, the extra trim that was really scrap? And how about our pumpkin planter that I've turned into his base? That glitter complements the color of that pink cloud so well. And there's some of our little postcards and his little ruffle around his ankles. So there's one of our pumpkins that I got for $1/4, that group of pumpkins. Let's take a look at the other one, the scepter. How cute did he turn out? So sweet, from a very, very inexpensive, almost free, little jack-o'-lantern. And there's a good look at his face. His disproportionate face. Kinda creepy, kinda cute. I love his ruffle around his neck and his wrists and ankles. The little accent of the scrap around his wrists, adorable. And you didn't have to throw him away. And he is in the round. You can view him from 360 and you'll still know what he is. I love the postcards. Those postcards are amazing. But there's a nice look at the entire piece. So here's Cupie. Let's do a side-by-side blown up comparison with our little ornaments. Not too bad. Not too bad. I think I captured the feel and the look of these authentic vintage Halloween ornaments. Thanks again to Jody, Annie, Monica, and Zaina for joining me in this Last Thing Thrifted. You're going to find the links to their channels and this fabulous playlist in my description box below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, share it with your family and friends and anyone that likes DIYs, thrifting, or vintage Halloween decor. You can follow me on Instagram and don't forget to check out my shop on Etsy. Leave me a comment. I would absolutely love to hear from you. Subscribe. What are you waiting for? You know you wanna, and it's a great way to support my channel. Thanks for watching. This is Dawn with Shabby Meets Bling, and I'll see you next time.